Hey guys, good evening. So we're going to look at the R2 or L2, if you've got the issue with that, trigger problem with the new PS5 controller. So I've not done a YouTube video before, I've not done a full teardown of one of these before, but I am seeing lots of issues with the R2. So there's options you've got. You can return them to Sony and they will reimburse you the cost and obviously fix it or send you a new pad. I was lucky, I got my console through Amazon, so I approached Amazon and they gave me a 10% discount. So there's either a mixture of 10% discount or up to a £60 voucher by the sounds of things going around, which pays for a replacement pad without having to send the other one in. So effectively, 2 pads for the price of one, and we can look at fixing the sloppy R2 trigger on this. It is the spring. They are known as the issue. You can get the springs on eBay. If we can see them there just above the white, they're really, really tiny and they're probably the weakest bit of the new PS5 controller. But they're about £3 for 4, if not probably £2 to £3 for more than that off eBay. So go ahead, get yourself some, and then fix your sloppy R2 because it's really, really simple. To repair the R2, what we're going to use are some really simple and normal household tools. So I've got 3 screwdrivers here. We're probably not going to use them. We've effectively got a normal Phillips small screwdriver and just a flat blade. The flat blade is going to be used primarily to prise the case open, and the Phillips is to do with the 4 screws that we've got holding the pad together. Now, these black sections at the bottom, you can see around the internet now they're cropping up for replacements. So probably plenty of you out there have already replaced these, but they're really, really simple. Lots of videos suggest going in at the bottom near where the charging port or headphone jack is. I would suggest going in at the corners here. They lift up really, really simply, and it just allows you access along the line of the pad to prise up and get underneath. So we'll get that bit off first. So just prising the edges up, getting the screwdriver in, just putting there, and then just twisting slightly, just pops the cover up, and you can get that off nicely. That then exposes the edges, and if you're just gentle with it, you can just lift that section up there. Either side, get your flat blade in here, and just pop the little triggers, the little plastic covers off, and they're really, really simple. Just kind of work your way in, and just make sure that it's popping up. Just be gentle, just take your time, and you won't break anything. I think a lot of people's worries with this is that they're going to be really hand-fisted, they're going to break something, and it's going to be an expensive thing. Honestly, these pads are so simple to take apart. You can see I've just popped that one off there. Once it's there, we can rotate it back to normal and just lift the part up. Be really careful that you don't prise it up too much because these bits here obviously go under the white plastic and you could probably break them. But again, just be gentle. Put that to the side. And there we go, there's the first bit. It's looking like R2-D2 with his face off. Cool, so the next bit then, we've got 4 screws. These are just normal screws, hence the Phillips screwdriver that we grabbed earlier. So they're located, one here, one the opposite side, and then the other 2 are going to be underneath the R1 and L1 buttons. So just unscrew these, really simple. There's no knack to it, so just pop these out. Rotate the pad, just so you drop the screw onto your piece of paper or anything that you're working on, rather than into the pad itself. Not that it's going to go anywhere, because there's nothing really there. So they're out, and then we need access to the other 2 at the top. So the other 2 at the top are located under the R1 and the L1. So get your flat blade screwdriver again, insert it in the top, and just pop the R1 out. Just work it into the corner is probably the best, and then just pop the R1. You can see it just prizes up there, and then just pull it out. There we go, and just pops out. The other one hopefully will come out a lot easier. There we go. R1 and L1s removed. Now you can see in the tops of those, we get a Phillips screwdriver again, they're the other 2 screws that need removing. So again, just unscrew those. And then that's most of the heavy fixings out. Again, rotate the pad, drop the screw out, just keep them all together. if you don't want to get the screwdriver under the R1 or L1, then if you go into your cutlery drawer and get a butter knife, again, they're really good at just popping them out just because they're thin and flat, and they'll pop those out right away. There's no real clips, they just pop in, pop out. If I can show you there, they just grip on inside, and again, when they go back on later, they'll just pop back in. Cool, so that's the screws and most of the covers off. So now it's just a case of prising the pad apart. Take your time, be gentle, just start at the bottom and work your way around. As long as you're not hand-fisted, you're not going to do any damage to the pad itself. You can see at the bottom already, the places I start with are these two little clips here, there and there. I'm looking through the camera trying to point at the same time, so my hand-to-eye coordination is terrible. So again, just get the flat bay driver behind them and just pop those off as such. You're going to need to pull it down as well as pop them off at the same time. So I'm just going to lower this down slightly just so I can get to this. So using your finger underneath there whilst popping that clip will help you out. Again, insert the driver under there and then just pull back on that. We'll just start to separate the bottom half of that pad. So in a case of looking to split the case at the top here, again, you're not going to do any damage, just slowly start to prise it apart and that'll release. And again, on the other side, just slowly start to prise it apart. And there we go, and it releases. And there we go. That is the back coming off the pad, and then just slowly lower it away. There's no connections on it. That should just fall away. And you're presented with the back of the PS5 controller. So this is the back of the PS5 pad. You can see we've got the L2 trigger and the R2 trigger, and you can see just how soft that is compared to the L2 trigger. If we can see down here, we can see the spring, the metal section just in here, and that sits around, I'm sorry about the zoom, I'm trying to zoom as best we can and focus. That kind of sits around a little plastic former to hold it in place. Now, if we go to the R2, we can see that in here, it's gone completely. That's because the spring is fully broken and falling apart into the pad somewhere. So once you take the back of your case off, you'll probably hear it rattling. Just give the pad a shake and you'll no doubt find that little bit drop out. The great thing about the R2 spring fix is it's on the outside of the pad, so it's easy to get to. The L2 is obviously trapped a bit more inside. Cool, so I've got zoomed in on the section we're going to put the new spring on. So the new spring is there in my fingers. Another useful tool, if you've got a set, would be a set of tweezers to drop this in. And the way I do this is just kind of lower it onto the plastic former and put one of the arms in place, and then use your screwdriver to manipulate the other arm into the other side of the former. It's really easy to see, but because I'm going to do this as basic as we can, I'm not going to use any tweezers. So excuse my big fat thumbs. I'm going to go in as best I can. I'm going to initially place the new spring in position. So the spring is now roughly in position. That's just sat around that former. I'm just going to coax it on. I'll just try and rotate this round a little bit. There is, underneath the trigger, there's a little seat where that arm sits into. It's really obvious to see. It's quite hard to get a zoom in and show you, but it's just a little formed piece of plastic which the arm will sit into. So put one of them in, obviously put the rest of the spring around this piece of plastic, and then look to coax the other arm into its other retainer, which is what we're going to do now with this one. So we're just going to take our screwdriver and just help it all the way around as best we can without pinging the spring off. I haven't done this before. And there we go. Spring is now in its retainer, down here, around this plastic section, and in the seat under the trigger. And if you give the trigger a little brush before it was all sloppy, now that's got some good tension in it. So now we've done our trigger spring. Now it's just a case of repeat what we did before. So putting the pad back together. So start with white cover, lower that over the triggers, just try and work her in at the top and then close her around. Obviously there's little gaps around the outside, so just start squeezing them together. They'll just click together all the way around. Work your way around the pad, clicking it together. They should all just ping nicely together, no big gaps. If you have had mucky hands on the pad, then they do tend to get a lot of grime and dirt down in these access routes. Just give them a clean out while you're here. Once we've done that, then it's a case of replacing the screws in the top where the L1 and R1 would go. So just take your Phillips screwdriver, and just relocate those back in there. And then the other one in the other side. That's those. Once they're done, then you can replace the R1 and the L1. Make sure you've got them the right way around. It does show on the top which way is up. Literally just lay them into the top. Once they're in the top, they just need a little bit of pressure, and then they click down, and then they work. Likewise on the L1, just lay him on the top. Once they're set in, a little bit of pressure, and they're in. Now we've got the bottom screws to put in. So remember, they go right at the bottom of the pad, underneath the black section, just at the bottom down here. So they go in. And the other one in there. And then it's the black section go back on. I actually find this probably the most tricky bit to go on, primarily because these little tabs at the front, they kind of go in between the white plastic in the front of the pad. So it is just a case of just getting them to slot home. You kind of have to work one while you get the other one in. For those that are replacing this with a coloured version from the internet or off various other websites, then this would be an ideal time to replace them then. But again, it's just a case of trying to wiggle this black one in. There is obviously a sweet spot for it, but I am yet to be able to find it. But yeah, as you can see, it's kind of going underneath that white section there. But it is tricky. Okay, there's one side in. You can see when it's going in properly because it's flat against it and it's not diving into the pad. And then it's just a case of working the other side in. Just gently, bently. There we go. And she's in. Once that's in, just kind of work it down around. Flip over the pad. Push that in. Push that in. And then just give the black section a good solid push, making sure there's no gaps down the bottom side. And that's that all back together. Pad all works. And nice, we've got a nice bit of tension on both the L2 and R2 having replaced the spring. So that's it. Nice and easy. There is nothing to be scared of with trying to replace the spring in the R2 or L2. A few pounds on eBay to get the springs. If you're looking for these on eBay or Google, if you just simply search PS5 R2 springs, they come up. They're actually quite... there's quite a lot of them out there on the internet. Obviously, people have realised that these things are breaking quite often and they're trying to cash in. They shouldn't be expensive. Like I said, I picked these up. There's 4 of them for some like £3. Got them off eBay and they came within a few days. They're really, really simple and you could probably pick them up from your local hardware shop as well. If you don't really want to do it, send it back to Sony. They will give you a replacement. Like I said, if you are with Amazon, speak to them. They will give you a decent amount of discount, which will effectively buy you a free pad. You can then go ahead and fix your primary pad that had the issue, and hey presto, you've got 2 now working pads with haptic feedback and a fixed trigger.